So I get what you're saying. However, she described this man's pouring cement as awe-inspiring. Awe-inspiring. Now, to me, it seems like she is overcompensating for this man's abuse. I'm a Leo. I'm an expert on egos, my own and other people's. And to me, this seems like a way to show that she is so above what happened that she's able to compartmentalize whatever she feels personally about this man and his abilities. She is showing us how much of the bigger person she is in this scenario. She is such a fair person that she is able to recognize that this man that she has every single reason in the world to hate pours cement so good that it's awe-inspiring. This man's pouring cement inspires feelings of reverential respect mixed with fear or wonder. In case you don't recognize my facial expressions, I'm not buying it. Okay, so it's time for me to say the thing. It's time for me to say the elephant in the room. I'm going to say it, okay? Brace yourself. The Black community protects predators. We harbor criminals. If a Black man is guilty of a crime, especially hurting women and children, we hide them. Women, not as much or so much, but men, definitely. Why do we do this? We do this because of slavery. We do this because of the history in this country, in the United States specifically. I can't speak for other countries, but we do it in the US, the place where I'm from and that I know the most about, because there's a history of violence against Black people. Additionally, slavery has never ended. It just evolved into our current prison system. And so Black people, especially Black men, are still doing slave labor, except the plantation now is the prison. They are particularly vulnerable and targeted by police and our current justice system. So, being that many of us are aware of this, we try to do what we can to keep Black men out of prison. We try to protect Black men, even when they're doing things that should not be protected. That man who abused Jill Scott and her mother should have been in prison. He should have been in prison. If he was going to be praised for his laying cement, he should have been laying cement for 10 cents a month in prison. There unfortunately aren't any other systems that have been created. I know people talk about, wanting to be abolitionists, but I mean, until that happens, what are we going to do with the abusers, with dangerous people who are amongst all of us? Prison right now is it. So he should have been in prison. Being very talented does not mean that you are not a rapist, doesn't mean that you are not an abuser, does not mean that you are not breaking the law and you should not be in prison. There are a lot of famous Black men and some Black women who should be in prison. And this is a hard pill for a lot of us to swallow because we're so used to having that protection instinct turn on when we see a Black person who is just some kind of shining star, somebody who has a real talent or ability, and we see that they also have some really, really bad problems. We want to excuse the problems. We want to forgive them, even when they're breaking the law, even when they are a danger to others. We don't want to see them in prison. We don't want to see them enslaved. And it's understandable. Perhaps it's in our DNA after having had ancestors who experienced the horrors and the inhumane condition that is being enslaved. But the only thing that we continue to do is reward abusers. We are quite literally rewarding people who do not deserve community. Amanda Seales said something about how Black spaces are not necessarily safe. And as long as we continue to harbor fugitives, because that's really what it is, we are harboring fugitives. As long as we continue to harbor fugitives and make excuses for them, like, oh, well, they dance really good, Black spaces will not be safe spaces, just by default. So while Jill Scott may not necessarily be saying that having the talent excuses the abuse, she is using language that kind of shows that she thinks it's okay for abusers to continue to be in community with the people they abuse. And abusers do not deserve community. They don't. They need to be ostracized. Another thing that needs to happen in the Black community, and I know everybody's going to hate me for saying this, but I'm going to just have to say it. We need to decenter men. Black spaces need to prioritize women and children. We have to stop harboring criminals. We have to stop protecting men from the consequences of their own actions. I did a video before where I talked about how I am not a safe space for bad men. As far as the spiritual world is concerned, I am the feds. As a community, Black people need to be the spiritual feds. We allow baby monsters to grow into huge beasts because we allow it to feed on women and children. The only reason that Diddy is getting the attention that he is getting in the Black community is because he's been assaulting men. But many of the abusers that are in the entertainment industry who have been exposed for their abuse, they were feeding on women and children for a long time. And they had plenty of help in doing it. They had plenty of enablers. So to bring it back to the point again, I do believe that Jill Scott is saying what you're saying that she's saying, which is, this guy was awful at home and he was a very talented foundation layer. But the hidden subtext to what she's saying is that this man had been allowed to stay in community with everyday people when he'd already showed that he was not worthy of community with everyday people. If you act like a monster, you should only be allowed around other monsters. You should not be allowed to mix and mingle with regular people who do not hurt others, who are not abusers. The wolf should not be welcome in the chicken coop. That should not be his resting place. It does not matter how well the wolf can howl. And to me, it has been normalized to Jill Scott to see abusers be praised to a degree that overshadows the abuse that they have dealt out to other people. People such as herself and her mother. Vulnerable people who are not inherently in a position to be able to defend themselves. The energy that she should have gotten from the community was that of protection and that of ostracizing and getting rid of the person who was doing the abusing to her and her mother. But instead, the energy that she got from the community was them praising this man. And so she learned that being the bigger person, even when she's the victim, is more important than being protected from a monster. And in turn, everybody in the community being protected. This is behavior that she has seen be rewarded. Harboring fugitives, us against the world. Centering men, centering the safety of abusers as opposed to the people that they abuse. And women abusers benefit from this too. Don't get me wrong. Women abusers benefit greatly from this. Abusers are the problem. It's not just a men thing, but in broader society, men tend to be valued more than women and children. So that's going to reflect itself also within the Black community. But abusers of all genders tend to benefit from any type of system that harbors predators, that protects predators. And if we continue to make it seem like it's some kind of lofty, righteous thing to not speak ill of someone who has hurt you, but instead be clear-minded and level-headed and understand that this is a person just like us. And yes, they committed a crime against me and they commit crimes against other people, but only God can judge. Like that mentality, not only does it serve no one but abusers, it's also a very egocentric way to handle a situation. Because if somebody does speak out and says, I really hate this person because of what they did to me, if a victim is saying something like that, it's easy to shut them down by saying, oh, well, you're not a righteous person. You're not taking the high road, you're taking the low road. When a victim of abuse or of some kind of crime has every right to not want the person who victimized them, who abused them, to be in community with them and with their friends and family. They have every right to feel that way. There would have been no love lost, as far as I'm concerned, for Jill if she'd have said, this man poured the worst cement in the world and I hate him. She could have been wrong about that, but it would have been fine. She would not have been a bad person for not praising him for something so ridiculous in comparison to what he did to her and her mom. So in conclusion, I think we should normalize ostracizing abusers from our communities. We also need to be very quiet about the praise that we give them and not reward them with love, attention, resources, and all of the things that will allow them to continue their abuse. But we gotta normalize getting them up out of our communities. We can praise them after they're gone. Abusers do not deserve peace because they don't give peace. Why in the world are we so hell-bent on creating peace and comfortability for people who create chaos? And it doesn't matter if they're only creating chaos for one person and everybody else is getting peace from whatever else they're doing. That one person is one person too many. The abuser has to go. And in doing this, we're letting that person who's been abused, that victim of abuse, know that they are important, they're valuable. Imagine how it must feel to know that you have to tell on someone who is beloved in the community. Everybody just loves this person so much. You're going to feel guilty. You're going to feel like you're a menace. You're the problem. So we don't want victims of abuse or of assault of any kind to feel that way. We want them to know that they are just as important as everybody else in society, and they have a right to be safe. So yeah, it's really important to not praise and elevate abusers above everybody else, because this is a wrong message to send to those who are potential victims of abuse and those who are already victims of abuse. So that's all I have to say. I'm tired of saying the word abuse so many times. Yeah, let me know what y'all think in the comments. And if you like this video, subscribe. This is really just me talking off the top of my head. But, I have lots to say, lots more to say. And if you have anything to say, please comment below. Be safe, enjoy your day, and get the abusers up out of your community.